What is going on, my people? We are back for UFC 323 lock of the week. You already know how the video goes. I'm gonna start the video off recapping last card's lock of the week. We're gonna move into this week's lock of the week, the most confident picks, favorite underdogs, and of course, wrap the video up with my favorite section, your favorite section, Makai's money making plays, the parlays. I'm sure you guys like, comment, subscribe to the channel, drop a W in a comment, drop a lock for this big lock that I got for you guys. The last pay-per-view possibly ever, definitely of the year. You know I'm coming with something big. We're gonna make some really good money this week for UFC 323. So let's get the video started. I don't want to hold you guys up anymore. Last card, UFC QATAR. We hit on the parlay, Volkan Ozdemir, Ian Gary plus 103. Solid 2-leg parlay for me, but I want to go back to the roots of the lock of the week. I want to go back to a big dog, one that I think can win, one that I think can finish. Not only just get a W, I want to finish here. And I think the dog that I have in mind definitely has that upside. I went back and listened to a lot of my reads again, just to make sure, I felt the same as I did before I had my Thanksgiving meal and after I had my Thanksgiving meal, because I'm pretty full. I can't lie. I had some really good food. I hope you guys did too. Enjoy the holiday as well. And I still feel very confident in exactly how I read all of those fights. And I'm still feeling really good about the lock that I got for you guys. So I don't want to waste any more time. Like I said, I went over the tape again, and I'm feeling very confident about this week's lock of the week. So let's get straight into UFC 323 lock of the week. We are going with Manuel Torres sitting at plus 180. Guys, I cannot ignore the striking discrepancy between Manuel Torres and Grant Dawson. I can't overlook it. We go back and look at Grant Dawson, right? He's on a 3-fight winning streak. But let's look at who he's beat. Joe Solecki, grappler, right? He got a TKO win over Rafa Garcia, but Rafa Garcia is also a short, stocky, not as powerful, definitely a not powerful kickboxer. So he took him down, controlled him, got a dominant, ground and pound finish there. And then he has a win over Diego Fierro 10 months ago. But I can't ignore the knockout loss to Bobby Green 2 years ago. Granted, it was 2 years ago, but it was a straight left, straight to the jaw of Grant Dawson. And he also has a knockout loss back on the regional scene from the same punch. Then I look at Manuel Torres, right? Let's go through what he's done in the UFC. Knockout win over Drew Dober last time out 7 months ago. Yes, he has a loss to Ignacio Bahamondes, but the stylistic matchup between Ignacio and Grant Dawson, two completely different fighters, and he got caught slipping in that matchup. It is what it is. He learned, got back in the W column. But prior to that, Chris Duncan, who was a teammate of Grant Dawson, got a rear naked choke on him in the first round. And then he also has that nasty step-in elbow finish over Nicholas Mota in his second fight in the UFC. I think Manuel Torres is live to start Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson's only path to victory is sub or being very dominant in the wrestling. And I don't see that happening for him here. I don't think he's going to be able to get Manuel Torres down, because in order to get Manuel Torres down, he's going to have to get some respect in the striking. And one thing that Grant Dawson, in my opinion, doesn't have is something to respect in the striking. He will come out, throw a lot of naked kicks, throw a lot of naked head kicks, leg kicks. I think Manuel Torres, he's not the strongest guy, don't get me wrong. He's pretty long and lanky for the division, but the power that he carries is so imposing that he's going to force Grant Dawson on the back foot. And everybody knows how hard it is to wrestle when you're the one being backed up. I think Manuel Torres is live to knock out Grant Dawson in the first round and the second round. I think as long as this fight is on the feet, Grant Dawson is in complete danger. Now, like I said, Grant Dawson is a very dominant wrestler, but without him being the aggressor in this matchup, because if you go back and look at the guys that he's fought, none of them present the power or the knockout upside that Manuel Torres has. Joe Solecki is a grappler, and he had Grant Dawson in the rear naked choke, in a ghillie early in their matchup, and then he got controlled in that matchup. I'm looking at, front headlock positions for Manuel Torres with Grant Dawson shooting naked takedowns, because like I said, the striking is not going to be there for him to set it up. Manuel Torres also has a submission win over Grant Dawson's teammate, Chris Duncan, who I believe is levels better than Grant Dawson. Granted, the record doesn't state that, but I feel as though Chris Duncan is better at MMA than Grant Dawson is. I feel as though he can mix it up a lot better. Grant Dawson, one path to victory, like I just said. I think teeps to the body will be able to work for Torres. especially how square Dawson stands. And I think, his stance, he stands very he stands very square when he enters range. I think that's gonna, perfectly line him up for a straight shot down the middle. Like I said, the teeps and even just the straight shots from Manuel Torres, which he is very elite at. Also has nasty step in elbows. The knees to the body will be nasty. The nasty front chokes that I just told you guys about. I have to respect the guy who has shown an ability to hurt guys not only on the feet, but also put guys away with the grappling as well. I think Manuel Torres is an easy lock. There's a lot of dogs that I like on this card, don't get me wrong, but I feel as though Manuel Torres was the one that clearly stuck out to me with the striking advantage, with his ability to force Grant Dawson on the retreat and his finishing power. I think Manuel Torres is a lock of all locks for UFC 323. I'm invested in him. I believe you guys should too. So that is going to be UFC 323's lock of the week. Manuel El Loco Torres to get his second knockout of 2025 and state himself as a top 20 lightweight in the division. Let's get it going. Manuel El Loco Torres by knockout. I might even invest in a cycle parlay. Manuel Torres money line, Manuel Torres KO, and then probably like round 1 or round 2. That's exactly how I see this fight going. I don't think Grant Dawson is going to control him with the grappling. I think he's going to get his lights put out. So Manuel Torres, like I said, lock of the week. Now, very hype. I will be honest though. I was going back and forth on who was going to be the lock. There's another fighter that I will mention later. He's also an underdog on this card that I was considering as lock, but decided to go with Manuel. But let's move on to most confident picks. I got 2 fighters for you. I'm going to throw them up now. We're going with Merab and we're going with Peyton Talbot. Now, Merab, as you guys know, has already dominated Peter Yan, 50-45 them in his first fight. But like I mentioned in the prediction show, when Merab spins the block, he tends to finish. When he spun the block on Sean O'Malley, finished him with a submission. I think he can do the same thing here against Petr Yan. Petr Yan's last opponents have all been strikers. None of them, to me, show that he can do anything with Merab, who is a grappling heavy specialist. Pressure fighter, will be in your face, can mix it up on the feet as well, which is something that Petr Yan clearly struggles with. A guy who's not going to back down, a guy who's going to be relentless with the takedowns, and he'll let you back up, but he'll just toss you right back down again. One thing that I have seen Merab being able to improve on recently is his finishing, especially in the jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of moments where I seen in the first fight where Petr Yan will work himself back up to his feet, but he would also leave his neck exposed. And I think Merab will be able to capitalize on that. I think he can lock up, a Darce. I think he can lock up maybe even a rear naked choke. I think Merab is going to strangle Petr Yan. If he doesn't finish him, I think he will look for the finish, but I do think Merab spins the block and gets a finish on Petr Yan and being the first guy to finish him in his pro MMA career. I like Merab sitting out minus 400. I think he's a lock as well, but of course, minus 400 isn't something that I'm going to give you guys as a lock of the week. I like the plus money. I like Manuel Torres as a lock, but Merab will be in a couple parlays, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Moving on to Peyton Talbot sitting at minus 265. I think he's going to squash Henry Cejudo. You guys heard me before. I've never been a big fan of Henry Cejudo since he's been back in the UFC. It's just been lost. I think this is a showcase fight for Peyton Talbot. I like the size. I like the speed. I like the striking. And I don't think, Henry Cejudo, yes, he's an Olympic wrestler. He has, the gold medals. But I don't think he's going to be able to wrestle Peyton Talbot. Will he get a takedown? Maybe. He might get 2. But I think Peyton Talbot will be able to work back up to his feet, create more moments for him to create more damage. And we also had to take in consideration that Henry Cejudo said this is his retirement fight. Why would he take it against Peyton Talbot? I'm not really sure. I think this is a really tough fight for him. A lot of people are putting stock into that Raoni Barcelos loss for Peyton Talbot, which I did too in his Felipe Lima loss. I picked Felipe Lima in that fight, but we saw how easily he was able to bounce back. I think that Raoni Barcelos fight for him was one that he was overlooking and just thinking he was going to knock the guy out. And we've seen Barcelos, win over Peyton Talbot, the win over Ricky Simone. He's still on a surge, so that loss doesn't really look that bad. However, looking at Henry Cejudo, on his way out, he's been smoking a lot of weed recently. I can't hold Henry Cejudo in the light that he once was, the former 2-division champion. I don't think Henry Cejudo is going to win. I think he is live to get finished. I know he had a decent fight with Song Yadong last time out, got his eye poked. But I feel as though Peyton Talbot's finishing upside is a lot stronger than Song Yadong's. He has more tools. Look for the kicks, look for the knees down the middle, especially when Henry Cejudo gets to shooting. Look at the knee that he got with on Cameron Simon. I think he could recreate something like that here. So I really do like Peyton Talbot minus 265. I think he's live to finish Henry Cejudo inside of 2 rounds, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a decision either. I do think it's going to be a one-sided fight. So Peyton Talbot, another most confident pick for me as well. Then I do have one more most confident pick. It is not a fighter. It is actually a prop. It's going to be the over 1.5 in the Brandon Moreno Tatsuya Taira fight, sitting at minus 700. I don't think this fight ends, fast. With most flyweight fights, we do, these guys are very technical. We do see a lot of decisions at times, or even fights that go into the later stage. I don't think Taira is going to submit Brandon Moreno early. I don't think Brandon Moreno is going to knock out Tatsuya Taira. I think both of these guys are pretty durable. I think it's going to be a very scrappy, hard fight. I could see it going to a split decision. I am leaning Taira on the initial pick. We will wait for, the weigh-ins to lock everything in. But initially, I am leaning Taira, but I do think it'll be a close decision. I think both of these guys are at the top of their game. I favor Taira, being a little younger. Brandon Moreno, I feel as though he already peaked. He's already had the championship. I think he is on a downward. Granted, he has a win over Amir Albazi and Steve Erceg, last 2 fights, but we're starting to see that Steve Erceg isn't really as highly as we thought he was. We see that Amir Albazi, again, I never thought he was really good. Tatsuya Taira, I love that he took that loss to Brandon Royval. When he did, I felt as though before you get to, the elite level, you need to take a bump in the road. That's something that I like that Taira did. That's something that I like that Joshua Van did. There's a couple fighters that I definitely like that did that. Manuel Torres even getting finished by Ignacio Bahamonde as a top 15 lightweight. So I don't think these are bad stains on their records. I like that they took the bump and they're able to bounce back. And I do like Tatsuya Taira to win in the fight with Brandon Moreno. But again, most confident pick for me in that fight will be the over 1.5, sitting at minus 700. Parlay piece possibly. But yeah, that's what I got for most confident picks. Let's move on to the favorite underdogs. Like I said, there's a lot of underdogs that I like on this card. I'm throw them up for you now. We got Joshua Van, Karini Silva, Nazim Sadikov, and Bruno Fiera. Joshua Van was going to be the lock of the week, but I talked myself out of it. I didn't want to go full delusional because a lot of the guys probably would call me delusional, but I think Joshua Van has a chance to beat Alexandre Pantoja. One thing that I like from Joshua Van is he will not back up. The only time that I've seen Joshua Van back up was when he lost to Charles Johnson by knockout, and that was in that 3rd round. I think he's the better striker. I think he can hang with Pantoja in the grappling, which sounds crazy, but Joshua Van's build is one that is kind of hard to control. We saw Ray Saruya struggle to get him down, and he's a much longer, linkier fighter than Alexandre Pantoja. Granted, his wrestling might not be as good, but he does have very good submissions and very good control. The way that Van was able to get back to his feet and even create more damage on Ray Saruya definitely impresses me. I do understand this is Joshua Van's first 5-round fight, but one thing that I've seen from Joshua Van consistently is as the fights go on, he continues to build. He will put more out there as the rounds continue to grow, and that's one thing that I definitely like. Also, the multi-shot combinations with the boxing from Joshua Van is impressive. I think the only weapons that scare me from Pantoja in this fight will be Pantoja does finish a lot of his combinations with head kicks, and I think Joshua Van, when he throws his combinations, sometimes he does leave himself exposed, so that could be one element. Another thing will be leg kicks from Pantoja. I do anticipate Pantoja coming out with a heavy leg kicking game plan, seeing that Joshua Van is pretty heavy on that lead foot, but he does check them fairly well after, he eats probably like 2 or 3. It doesn't take much for you to feel it on that leg, but he does check them fairly well. And then the wrestling, of course, but I do think Joshua Van's wrestling defense has improved tremendously since we've seen him in his debut. So I think Joshua Van is a live underdog. I think the multi-shot combinations, him not being afraid of Pantoja, whereas we look at a lot of Pantoja's former opponents, we got Kai Asakura, one shot, looking for the one shot, trying to knock him out. Steve Erceg looking for the one shot, but he was also able to mix it up with Pantoja and gave him his toughest fight. Kai Kara France, we all know he's just one shot power. I don't really think he has a lot of power, but does have some knockouts in the flyweight, which is kind of rare. But again, looking for that one shot, got submitted. And I think a lot of these guys just fall to, the mystique of Pantoja. I don't think Joshua Van is going to fall for that. He's already talking about, I'm just going to go in there and do my thing. And then when we get a movable object taking on an unstoppable force, it's going to be fireworks. And I think this fight is definitely going to go over 2 rounds. I do see Joshua Van pulling away later, in the third round, 3, round 4, round 5. I think he's going to look better, which is kind of crazy to say over the champion. But I think, like I said, Joshua Van, the way that he builds, I think it's going to play out in his factor as the fight continues to go on. I think for Pantoja, he's going to have to get him out of there early, and I don't anticipate that happening. I think Joshua Van can walk away with a decision. I think he can possibly stop Alexandre Pantoja, but I like Joshua Van sitting at plus 190. So almost the lock of the week, but he will be an underdog for me. I will be playing him straight. I do think we get Anu in the co-main event. Next up, Karine Silva, plus 150. I don't know about you, but I can't trust Macy Barber coming off of, apparently I'm hearing that it was a bad boob job. So, that's why she passed out in that fight with Erin Blanchfield, was unable to make the walk. She's been out for about a year. Granted, she did have that fight scheduled. She was also injured in the fight prior to that. There's a lot of injuries for Macy Barber. I don't think her striking is that good. Yes, she does have that, blitzing, boxing combination, forward pressure. She can mix in the wrestling, but I think Karine Silva is just way too tactical for her. I think we're going to see the Karine Silva who made her way into the UFC on a finishing streak, and I think Karine Silva's live for a finish. I'd lean submission if I'm being completely honest. I can see Macy Barber being very sloppy in the boxing. Again, I'm worried about Macy Barber's gas tank now with the injuries as well. I know Karine Silva's gas tank was a worry for me back on the prediction shows, but now that I'm looking at it, I think Karine Silva, with her win over Dione Barbosa, which was a short notice replacement for her, I take some positives away from that fight. Granted, I didn't pick her to win. I did pick Dione. Slight bias for me. I did meet Dione, but I do think Karine Silva has improved her takedown defense, has improved her cardio. I do think more times than not she will land on top. I think her jiu-jitsu is very dangerous. She doesn't have to get a choke, She's finished Ketlin Souza with a knee bar, popped it in the first round. She's got submissions in the UFC. I think she's going to go back to the well and find a submission win over Macy Barber with her reckless approach with the boxing, and then she'll shoot for takedowns. I really just don't think Macy Barber's really that good. I think Erin Blanchfield was probably going to dominate her now that I'm looking back at it. And I think Karine Silva is going to get back on her finishing streak. So I like Karine Silva, plus 150. I think submission is live. I'll even pull up the line for you guys so you know what I'm thinking. Karine Silva via sub is sitting at, where we at? Silva submission is plus 400. So not that crazy in my opinion. I definitely think it's possible. And I do lean Silva getting a submission in this fight. So I definitely like Karine Silva as underdog. Next, we're going Nazim Sadikov. Picked him already on the prediction show. I think he's going to be able to mix it up a lot better than Fares Ziam. Look for the takedowns. I think he can close range. I think he can force this fight to be in boxing range, whereas Fares Ziam wants to sit on the outside and pick you apart. But I think more often than not, Nazim Sadikov is going to force that interaction, and we're going to see Fares Ziam, he's going to use his long guard, but you can beat that with pressure. I think Nazim's multi-shot combinations, ripping to the body, mixing in the wrestling, I think is going to give Fares Ziam a lot of issues. I also favor Nazim to land on top when they do wrestle. We've seen Fares Ziam under Mike Davis. We've seen him get submitted by Terrence McKinney. I think Nazim Sadikov could get to a dominant position on the ground, possibly look for a TKO, possibly look for a submission, but money line is pretty solid too. Plus 110, I really like Nazim Sadikov as an underdog. And the last underdog that I really do like is Bruno Ferreira. I think Bruno can stop Marvin Vettori. I know it's crazy to say. Marvin Vettori is durable beyond durable goes. Dude's got a granite chin. I think Bruno Ferreira presents an explosive power that he has rarely seen. We've seen him stumbled and cracked in that Brendan Allen fight. And it got me to thinking, if Brendan Allen really had power and was able to just explode on guys, I think Marvin Vettori probably would have got TKO'd in that fight. I don't think it would be crazy for Bruno to pull off one here. Now, is this a step down in competition? Yes. I'll say yes. But looking at Bruno Ferreira, I know he lost to Abus Magomedov. He got submitted by him. But the way that he was able to bounce back and get the submission win over Armin Petrosian, I definitely like that. He was able to get the submission win over Jackson McVeigh. Granted, Jackson McVeigh doesn't really have a ground game. I don't see Marvin Vettori out wrestling Bruno Ferreira. I don't see Marvin Vettori putting on a striking clinic against Bruno Ferreira. Marvin Vettori doesn't really move his head. He doesn't really have a good lateral movement. Like, he'll walk away from striking exchanges. But I think Bruno Ferreira, he just uncorks on guys and just lets loose with a lot of power. And I think that's going to give Marvin Vettori a lot of issues. It's a style that I don't really think Marvin Vettori has seen yet. Like, he's seen tactical kickboxers who have power, like Paulo Costa and Jared Cannonier, but he hasn't really seen a guy who can just lunge in and out of range with big power. And I think that's going to surprise Marvin Vettori. I think we could see Vettori cracked, not for the first time. It wouldn't be the first time that he's cracked, but I could see him cracked and Bruno letting go some really big shots. And I wouldn't be surprised by a TKO again, but I do like Bruno Ferreira. Very close money, minus 105, minus 104 on the money line. Again, he's probably the least favorite underdog that I do like, but I am leaning on picking him. I'm still a little, I'll say, like, right now, I'm like 65% confident in Bruno Ferreira, whereas like Joshua Van, I'm at like 85, 90, you know what I'm saying? Manuel, I'm at 100%. So that's where I am on Bruno Ferreira. That's what I got for the favorite underdogs. Now let's get into my favorite section, your favorite section. Everybody loves Makai's money making parlays because we made some big money on UFC Qatar. So I'm looking to recreate that feeling. I got a lot of plays for you guys. So make sure you take your notes, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and let's get straight into it. I got a lot of plays for you, but we're going to go one by one. Getting it started, chalky play, Marab, Peyton Talbot, minus 153. I think that's absolutely solid. I think you're coming home with some solid money if you throw down on it. Over 2.5, Moreno versus Tyra. Iwo Baranowski money line, minus 105. I do favor Iwo to finish that fight as well with mixing in the wrestling. Ground and pound, submission is definitely live. Sneaky safe play. Then we're going Tyra and Talbot, plus 136 for the new breed guys. We're going Silva, under 2.5, Malik versus Trockley, plus 196. Definitely think that's live. Under 1.5, Dawson versus Torres and Nazim Sadikov, plus 267. That's dog money right there. I told you I got Manuel Torres winning round 1 and round 2. And then I really like Nazim Sadikov to pull it off as well. Under 2.5, Iwo versus Ebo and Joshua Van, plus 290. Solid value on that one. Torres and Chris Duncan, plus 341. ATT split. Very interesting that they're, Chris Duncan and Grant Dawson are scheduled back to back. I don't think that they have the same coaches, but I do know that they fight out of the same gym. And I lean, one guy that fights for ATT, Chris Duncan, and I fade the other one with Grant Dawson. So really like that play there. Then we're going Torres, Talbot, and Jalen Turner, plus 431, the triple threat play. Then we're going Bruno, Iwo, and Bogdan, plus 500, pure brutes to get it done. Torres, KO, and Carini Silva. Damn, there's a lot of Silvas. Plus 620, live dogs. Then we're going Duncan inside the distance, Turner inside the distance, and Joshua Van, 665, sneaky D-Gen play right there. This one might surprise you. Bogdan KO, Tyra decision, and Marab moneyline, plus 765. I think that's the bank play right there. I do think Bogdan can mix in some very powerful, explosive striking on Jan Blachowicz. I know he wasn't in the favorite underdog play, but I do think Bogdan is live to win. I do think he can surprise Jan, not playing the kickboxing game and just decide to turn it up with him and probably find the shot. We have seen Jan, fade in fights as well, so it could come late. You go back and you look at the fight with Glover Teixeira, where he was getting pieced up on the feet momentarily and then ultimately submitted. So it's not like we haven't seen Jan finish before. I do think Bogdan could probably turn his lights off, though. It does have a lot of explosive power. Then we're going Ewo, Torres, Nazim, and Mansour plus 870. Then we got Silva, submission, Nazim, moneyline plus 970. DJ play right there. Tyra, sub. If he does get the sub, I do lean for it to be, over in like late in that third round. Like I said, Tyra sub, Guskov, moneyline plus 1193. Do think that's possible. Marab inside the distance with Manuel Torres, moneyline plus 1300. I told you, Marab spinning the block. I think he's looking for the finish, and I definitely like Marab inside the distance. Savage play right there. Then we're going the red panty night. Joshua Van, Manuel Torres, Marab, Ewo, Mansour Abdul Malik plus 1525. The red panty night. I think these are some solid plays. I think we're coming away with some good money in our pockets. And I think Makai's money making plays is making you guys some money again. So that's what I got for the lock of the week. That's what I got for confident picks. The favorite underdogs, the parlays. So let me know in the comments what you guys thought of each section. I am confident in each and single one of these plays, the underdogs. You already know how confident I am in the lock. I'm looking to end the pay-per-view on a high with Manuel Torres. I think we got a really solid lock of the week in Manuel. I think he's coming through with a nasty finish and ending the year with 2 knockout finishes. And, I think it's only right to end the year spinning the block on a guy that we already hit for lock of the week. We picked him against Drew Dober with the knockout as well. I think this is a really good play that you guys should invest in. So let me know in the comments what you guys think of the lock of the week, of the favorite underdog. Do you think Joshua Van can win? Do you think Pantoja is going to submit him? Excited to hear who you guys are picking for your lock. If you're fading me, hey, drop it in the comments. I want to hear it all. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video, drop a W, support the channel if you would like. And I'll see you guys for the weigh-in recap. Make sure your post notifications are on, because we will be back on Friday night. So I will see you guys for the weigh-in recap. I'll see you guys for the full card recap. And you already know I'm coming right back again for the last card of the year, Manel Kape versus Brandon Royval. We got content dropping. Stay tuned. See you on the next one. Peace out.